Hi, I'm Mark Douglas with The Sea Within You. I'm a board certified coach and a member of the Association of Professional Astrologers International. I want to give a little bit of an overview of what transpersonal coaching is today so you can see the larger purpose, meaning, and values and embracing our life at higher and higher inclusive levels, and also the real practical, down to earth uses for transpersonal coaching as well. I'm going to look at it through the lens of dimensions of growth, something called aligning the team or subpersonalities, and looking at creating ideal or perhaps working models for ourselves as terms of goals alignment within coaching framework. So to start off with, in terms of dimensions of growth, in simple terms, we can think of this kind of XY axis here of leading our lives in seemingly two disconnected ways. Down at the bottom axis here, we can see our lives moving, perhaps, if you will, in a Western type of approach, the daily grind of acquiring garages, cars, homes, necessary things. But at some point, we realize that we can only sleep in one bed and we can only actually drive one car at a time. And at some point along, we generally run into what we call a crisis of meaning. And it asks larger questions for ourselves. Those questions come in terms of what's it all for? What's my larger purpose? What am I trying to transform into? And we can get really stuck, and of course, run into a lot of pain, suffering, and depressions whenever we haven't really embraced fully this upper axis as well, too. The upper axis, you could perhaps call, in simplistic terms, that Eastern growth idea of perhaps sitting on the yoga mat 23 hours a day, really seeking that spiritual alignment, which sounds perhaps really lovely. However, we can run into a crisis of duality at that point as well, too, where we're not able to feed ourselves or make enough money or really to kind of ground ourselves in the daily affairs that are so required as well, too. In both situations, as you could probably imagine, we want to hold both of these dimensions of growth, and they shift through time, through periods, through crisis. Astrology helps really well to see at what stage we're at and what factors are affecting us. But by and large, what we want to do is be able to embrace both sides of this coin and work through and resolve distortions and aligning the purpose and meaning and value to hold both of these. We both need to be fed, make money, and owning up to the fact that we are spiritual beings seeking greater purpose, meaning, value in harmony with ourselves and others. Next up is aligning the team or subpersonalities. And briefly, if we think of an image of our head of a bus and a bus stops, think of this perhaps as our psyche. And instead of having just one kind of self that we think of, subpersonalities really relates to having many parts of ourselves through false positives, false negatives, through conditioning growing up to be the good boy, the good girl, the great hockey player, the mathematician, the super student, the reliable one, the good friend, the etc., etc. All these parts of ourselves get formed within us, and at any one moment we could be operating from any of them. They're all valid within us, and the work of transpersonal coaching is getting to know these parts of ourselves, inner explorations, aligning them, finding out their needs, and through acceptance and guidance and not rejecting them. It's not pathological. It's really the core kind of component of psychosynthesis, of allowing these parts of ourselves to have seats at the table and come in so that we can actually align the team and have them all working together in our favor so that we can move towards our life goals and move through crisis and just our daily, even organizational and family affairs in a much more celebrated, mindful manner. terms of working in ideal models, maybe this photo sums it up, of having both the car and this joie de vivre, this joyfulness. When you have the car matched with larger purpose, meaning, and value, we do have a much more deeper and richer life experiences and models that we can work towards. These models change over time. They're never perfect, but we can set up visions for ourselves and practical and realistic models of how we want to be in the world, how we want to live our lives, and doing so in checks and balances of what's possible and what's seemingly impossible, and to work towards these. This is the core components of a lot of coaching, is allowing these larger viewpoints of ourselves to manifest and to be allowed into our lives. So transpersonal coaching, it works with many areas, but just give you a couple bullet points. It's really a practical alignment of the dimensions of growth, both our spiritual life and the paradox of kind of living and working, the daily grind. Crisis and fear are integral parts of life, and they happen to all of us. And rather than seeing them as accidents, is to work with them a bit more consciously and learn from processes as best we can, so that we can integrate these crises of meanings and roll with the waves, if that makes sense. We also work with an individual's capacity to face and transcend pain, grow through changes. The recognition of the inherent potential of the individual and sublime needs. Sublime needs is quite a mouthful, but essentially, when we repress those super mutant powers within ourselves, or repress the parts of us, say our higher self, or that piece within us that was true from a young age that we wanted to express into the world, it can cause just as equally as much depression and issues in our lives when we don't allow these kind of sublime, larger parts of ourselves to find a rightful place. Transpersonal coaching is also using a few different core systems within itself. The will is a core component, not just the strong will, but the goodwill, how we connect with others, and also the skillful will. So instead of smashing through the brick wall, perhaps we go around it. It's a whole system ontology, meaning we really do hold in the body, mind, emotions, spirit. And we value imagination, intuition as equal parts to thinking. The creative aspect of our imagination and of our intuition, to absolutely allow those in. And this is at the organizational and business level as well, too. Transpersonal coaching is, lastly, a leading edge of contemporary coaching for today's complex challenges. We need our whole selves. We need a spiritual element. We need to bring in our imagination, intuition, and have all parts within ourselves more mindfully kind of co-creating the team, so that we're aware of all our parts and be able to use our complete personality towards our goals as best we can through life's challenges and celebrations. So I hope that clears up a few questions around transpersonal coaching, and I'm always happy to talk more.